In March 2020, a group of international human rights activists visited the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camps in Poland. Most of them were born and raised in Myanmar. They've witnessed the genocide of their own people, called Rohingya. The aim of their trip to Auschwitz was to see how the Rohingya case relates to what happened to the Jews and other ethnic minorities in Europe during World War II.
And the building you see on the left side, the big one made of bricks, was built to receive new arrivals. Basically what was in this big building was showers. Every new arrival had to go through a registration process that involved showering, removing all the hair from the body. They also had their personal belongings taken away, and their personal belongings were usually replaced by striped pajamas.
Auschwitz was a complex of over 40 concentration and extermination camps operated by Nazi Germany in occupied Poland during World War II. Auschwitz II Birkenau camp was for Jews and other minorities from all over Nazi-occupied Europe, who were to be exterminated in the gas chambers. Around 1 million Jews, including children, were gassed here. Auschwitz was the Nazis' so-called final solution to the Jewish question.
Auschwitz is a symbol, actually maybe the most recognized symbol of the Nazi genocide. And also it was the climax of the Nazis' attempt to exterminate the entire Jewish community from all across Nazi-occupied Europe. I mean, Auschwitz is extremely relevant to the Burmese genocide of Rohingya that is still going on.
I belong to the Rohingya community. I was born in Rakhine State and I was raised in Rangoon. The genocide has begun in 1978. Since then, my people are suffering. So the people in Rakhine State, they are confined into the open air prison. Since 2012, more than 150,000 were herded into the camp in Sitwe and the other township in the central Rakhine State. They are still in those camps. They can go out from their villages They cannot do anything. They have the freedom of restriction to the freedom of movement, restriction to the marriage, birth, access to the education, access to the healthcare. So the suffering is same, but the different structure.
So most of the Jews who were brought into the camp, and they were brought here from all over the continent, from Norway, Greece, Italy, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, from Germany, Poland and Czechoslovakia, Austria and Hungary and Yugoslavia. They were brought here by rail. Women and children got separated from men, and then they faced doctors of medicine who, in the process called selection, decided who would work in the camp as slave laborer and who would walk straight to death in a gas chamber. As a result of such selections, again, conducted by professional doctors of medicine, 75% to even 90% of the Jews would be selected to death, and others, strong, healthy, able-bodied, were kept for slave labor.
There are lots of parallels, and that is what people need to know. Because if you do not know the parallel, then you let another genocide happen again, and it is happening already. The parallels that we have seen when we heard during the tour guide explaining to us about tortures, about beatings, about forced labor. You know how many times when I met with my people and interviewed them one-on-one about their experiences at the refugee camps, they talked about how they were abducted and put on forced labor, how their sons, their fathers, they never came back because they went into forced labor, and after that they were beaten to death or they were just executed over there. So this is a repetition of what we have seen during the Holocaust at Auschwitz.
So there were two big crematoria with 16 meters high chimneys on both sides of train tracks. Jews arriving at the crematoria would line up, go underground into semi-basement, undress. They were told to take their clothes off, leave them on hangers that had numbers. They were to remember the number of the hanger as if they were coming back. Then they were marched to the next room, and the next room looked like showers, and this was where they were killed. Later their dead bodies were lifted upstairs by means of electric elevator system. The hair was cut as Nazis exploited dead bodies of the Jewish victims. They were making money selling the hair of the dead women to German textile companies. They also removed jewelry, gold teeth replacement. This was sent to the bank. Then bodies were burned to ashes. And you must know that the people who were forced to deal with bodies of the dead, burn bodies to ashes, were Jews themselves.
Genocide happened in different countries. They are different because they happen in different contexts, different methods, different cultural background, and also different technological advance. Because here they were transporting people with trains and come, and those scientists using making the gas to kill them. So they have some like what I call innovation in killings using the science. But for example, in the case of my country, the people were using the traditional weapons and they're shooting. There's no gas or those or transporting people in the train. There's just concentration of people in one area and shoot them or they ban them or things like that. So they all different. All the genocide I studied, but they have got to the common one common denominator is the people who did it, they want to exterminate the people they were killing. So that is the objective of the killers. And those who were being killed, they were targeting to be exterminated or to reduce their community. That is the common, the common denominator for all those crimes, all those genocide and the Holocaust.
The Auschwitz was an industrial scale killing, mass killing of the Jewish people all across Europe. But in the case of Burma, the events of August 2017 and then several months following that is really the Burmese equivalent of Auschwitz without the gas chamber, because in the several months starting August 25, 2017 resulted in the destruction, physical destruction of nearly 400 Rohingya communities, the villages, the destruction of 38,000 physical infrastructures, homes, marketplaces, hospitals, schools and everything, and the exodus of over 730,000 Rohingya men, women and children in a span of several months.
My father's village, it doesn't exist anymore. My uncle's village doesn't exist anymore. It's out of the maps. It's not in the map of Rakhine. And they're made flat. There is no memorial. There is no commemoration site. No, forget it. It's flat land. Maybe there's some new construction in there, And then we talk about burning of bodies. There were like heaps of burned bodies. And they are doing this, the Tatmadaw, the Burmese military is doing this by studying what they have done in the Second World War by the Nazis.
One thing about Auschwitz is that it is not a crime of passion, and the victims and the perpetrators, they did not know each other at a personal level. Some of the executioners, SS officers, did not come into contact with the victims that they were guessing by the hundreds of thousands, and also the the mass graves, the destruction of the evidence of the crime or crimes that SS and the Burmese troops committed. And so both perpetrating forces, the Nazis and the Burmese military troops, both troops, both perpetrating groups, Nazis and the Burmese, they attempted to erase the evidence of the crime.
Here's another observation. The Allied forces apparently knew about what's happening in Auschwitz. It was not a top secret. They knew about it. And the prisoners some of them even requested, there was word out there that why don't you bomb this place and finish this, at least bomb the rail tracks. We can all die, but the suffering will be over. You will get rid of the SS. But no, they continued. because it was not strategically important. It was more strategically important, for example, to go and bomb Dresden, bomb Berlin, but they didn't care about the lives of the people over here. So Rakhine was not strategically important. My father's village was not strategically important. That's why it's over. Nobody cares about the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. We don't even know a count of the lives that were lost because it's not economically or strategically important.
Right, so what you will see on the left side is the factory. It's still operational. One of the producers of the factory at the moment is styrofoam, but the factory, again called Bunawerke, was to produce synthetic rubber and synthetic oil. The factory was heavily bombed by the Americans in 1944. Now you can see the old part of the factory. Built again by IG Farben with the use of civilian workers. There were also some British prisoners of war who were captured in North Africa by the Italians. When Italians changed sides, they were taken over by the Germans and brought here.
We've got similar situation in Burma. There are corporations that are benefiting from the work, from this genocide. And there are foreign investments that go in there. And those corporations continue to exist, just like Bayer Pharmaceutical exists today. They had their operations, they still have their operations. Well, in Burma, those companies that did conduct the massacres, those generals who funded the massacre, their businesses still run, and they're still being funded by Singaporean investments and Japanese investments and foreign investments. So these parallels, they exist. They are very clear.
Myanmar is the criminal state. For us, the most important is the resolution from the UN Security Council. We need that to take this criminal to the international criminal code. So once these criminals are punished by the international law, then all the crime they are committing against the Rohingya and other ethnic minority in Myanmar will be stopped.
Level of cruelty, the brutality, and this, the systematic, slaughter, the use of mass rape, gang rape of Rohingya women and girls. Some of them were as young as 9 or 10 years old, and the oldest will be in their 60s. I mean, the extremity of the brutality that was the characteristic of both Nazi SS and other elite executioners and the Tatmadaw, or the Burmese military. They're basically in the same league. The Burmese troops were as brutal and as cruel as the SS were towards the Rohingyas. Children were thrown into fire, women were raped in front of their children, the woman's breasts were cut off, the parents who attempted to rescue their the daughters from being raped were shot dead in front, and so the sadism, the taking pleasure in these cruel acts by both the Nazi SS and the Burmese troops. Well, they're, in essence, it's the same.
Why there is Auschwitz? Auschwitz is there because even brainwashed Nazis find it hard to kill millions of people looking them in the face. And they found out that, those people doing the killing, they would go screw up in their heads, and that's why they designed the factory to do the killing, where you just need one person throwing the gas through a chamber, to a gas chamber, and you never see the victims. Some other victims are processing the victims. You never come in contact with that suffering you caused. You are kind of like isolated from it.
And also that it was very sad moment because I was thinking the things happened there, the Holocaust happened there about 70 years ago. And now, 70 years later, the human being still kill each other at the high level, mass scale killing. And it's very sad. It shows how the humanity has not moved. It have not run from the past. What happened to the Jews, so that they can be able to stop it and stop killing each other. And it still continues now, as we, I experienced in genocide in Rwanda, in my home country, and we were with a brother and sister from the Rohingya community who just experienced genocide. And so to see that it happened in history and it's still happening now, and with the with a higher level for human cruelty is beyond my understanding.
And in Krakow, in numbers, it looked like this. Before the war, 68,000 Jews. After the war, 3,000 to 5,000 Jews. After 68, 200 Jews left. September 6th, German army is coming to Krakow. 9th of September, all the Jews are told to sign a list. If you're Jewish, you have to sign a list. And now they know they are Jewish. The next thing they're gonna do, 1st of December 1939, they're gonna tell you to wear Star of David. If you were not wearing Star of David 1939, 1940, you would be in trouble, but they would not kill you. It was only in 1941 that they would kill you for not wearing Star of David. Once you wear that star, nobody sees you, they just see a symbol here. And as you can imagine, it's easier to attack a symbol than to attack a human being. So you start by taking individuality away from people. The next kind of like piece of a puzzle was thing called stigmatizing. This would be triggered with Stars of David. Because once you are wearing Star of David, also your house would have Star of David, your shop would have Star of David, your bank account. And then, you know, it started with random German people stealing random stuff from random Jews. Or seeing someone with a Star of David walking the street, you could stop them as German and told them, shuffle my coal to the basement, put my wardrobe upstairs. You could do that. The Jews could not oppose you. And gradually everything you owned, it's owned by the Third Reich. And they would take your job. If you were lucky, you would become a slave. And once you were a slave, you were paid with a food coupon. Germans were getting a big salary and something like 3,000 calories per day. Polish people, teeny tiny salary and something between 750 to 1,500 calories per day, depending on the job you did. And then the Jews, no salary and on average 350 calories per day. And that's the moment when people are going to start dying. It's not happening with gas chambers, ghettos, camps, it's happening with economy, it's happening with food coupons. But you know, as long as people could move around, they could fight back. They could trade stuff, get stuff. And if you had the right resources, knew how to do things, you could do that. It wouldn't save you in the long run, but you could buy some time. And Hitler was running out of time. So then we have a next puzzle, limiting Jewish ability to move around. And that will start gradually with things like, you know, first a bench in a park, then a coffee place, then libraries, then theaters, then, you know, all sorts of things like that. Nice, but seemingly unimportant places. Gradually, Jews are excluded from them. After a while, you're going to be told not to go to the marketplace. After that, they're going to tell you not to go to the streets leading to the marketplace. And after that, they're going to tell you that if you are not working in German company or factory, you had to show up on a train station because Krakow is too good to have so many Jews in it. And 20,000 Jews were identified like this, who are not working for the Germans yet, and they were told to show up. And we're going to have first deportation early autumn, late summer of 1940. You show up on a train station, they are very nice to you. They won't beat you, they won't scream at you, they won't steal your backpack. And this one time, they're going to tell you to pick your destination. The only thing they demanded was that the Jews would not go to big cities. Big cities, Jew-free. Small towns and villages, be my guest, you could go anywhere. And as you go for a train to the destination you picked, you discover that this train is not a cattle wagon, it's a regular train. And as you walk on that train, you're gonna get a loaf of bread. Nazis prepared people with baskets full of bread, and so nobody would go hungry on the first deportation. And you take that loaf of bread, you go where you wanted, no barbed wire, no ghetto, no camp, nobody's getting killed. Actually, if you don't like the place, you could come back. And it was forbidden, but nobody was watching. And many of the Jews who went away from Krakow in the first deportation, they would later come back. Because they want to earn trust. They want you to believe that if you show up on a train station, if you do what you're told, you're gonna be fine, you know? And Nazis always had it like, they would do something ugly, but then always offer you hope. And no, and following this false hope that if you play by the rules, if you show up, do what you're told, that would literally lead people to a gas chamber. In 1941, in March, Jewish people are coming here. That would be continuation of this lie. Why the lie worked. If you are Jewish here and you didn't run to Soviet Union in the very beginning of the war, whatever choice you did, you were dead anyway. And in the situation where there is no hope, suddenly this hope given by the Nazis was looking like a hope, even though it was a lie.
I think that the idea of what you're talking about is like the Germans call it protective custody. We're going to like keep you under our custody for your own good. You come with us, kind of thing. That's what has been happening as a matter of policy to the Rohingyas in Burma right now.
Actually, when ghetto was organized in Krakow, Polish community was told, Jews are spreading diseases. We cannot keep you safe from those diseases if they are living among you. The Jews were told, Poles are anti-Semitic. They're gonna go after you. So you want to be safe from those evil Poles, follow us to Jewish living district. First lie about the ghetto was that it wasn't ghetto, it was Jewish living district. Next lie about the ghetto was that everybody will get a house. What they failed to mention to you was that you would share that house with a lot of other people. There was one person per 2 square meters of an apartment in a ghetto. And third lie was that they would give you a job. And with this lie, they were more honest because they really loved you working for them for free. And for the job, you would come to this building, which was Arbeitsamt work office. And you know, they're happy to give you a job, you were working for free, but they would also use it against you. You know, you work for someone for free, they would not harm you, right? Like, doesn't make sense. And Nazis would testify to that by giving you a stamp in your document if you were working, and then they were saying, yes, we are taking people away, but just those without a stamp. You have a stamp, you're good. And those who we are taking, we're just taking them to give them jobs elsewhere because we don't have jobs for everybody. So early deportations, you had the stamp, you are completely safe most of the time. And because sometimes they were not checking documents, but that's a different story. But later, the deportation, they run out of people without stamps, but they still want to take people out. What they do, night before deportation, announcement, your stamp not valid, you need a new stamp. And then you're gonna have this place besieged by people, everybody tried to get their stamp renewed, bribing officials, doing other things just to get that stamp. And magically there was never enough stamps for everybody. But you know, you secured your stamp, you would sleep peacefully that night. Those who didn't would walk away to be deported the next day. And at the end it didn't really matter, because both people with a stamp and without the stamp would go the same way. But you know, you could easily divide them, small groups, easier to digest, and that's how this lie worked.
when our guide was talking about having the work stamps on the documents, and when I asked him afterwards about what documents they were putting the stamps on, what he said was that they were colour-coded according to ethnicity. And I'm sure that this is something that all you Burmese can relate to, but also I was thinking that probably is something that was quite clear in the Rwandan genocide as well, was the role of ID cards in that, not only in terms of citizenship, which is something quite large, but also in terms of the stigmatization that he was talking about, again with the Jewish star that they were wearing.
This building, charity. Nazis allowed Jews to have a charity. This charity was getting supplies from Red Cross, Sweden, Switzerland. As long as United States did not join the war, the packages here were coming from US-based Jewish charities. And it wasn't enough of all of Poland, but it was enough for this ghetto to run hospital, feed the kids in the kindergarten or an orphanage. Huge help. But this huge help was coming with a price tag. And the price tag was you had to stick to the Nazi lie, being part of the lie inside of the ghetto, but also on the outside. You had to lie to the Red Cross, so they would keep on sending packages. You had to tell them that everything is fine. And this lie is harder and harder because, and especially at the end of the ghetto. 2 weeks before liquidation of the ghetto, Nazis would come here with a camera crew, with handsome German actors dressed up as German soldiers, and they're gonna match those German actors with still good-looking Jews from the ghetto. There was like a casting for healthy-looking Jews, and then they're gonna make a movie. And then the Jews would go to a gas chamber, or be killed here, or sent to the camp, and the movie would be sent to the Red Cross, so the Red Cross would keep on sending supplies to a place where everybody was already gone or dead.
The second of the final points that I took from today was I thought it was very powerful when he was talking about the building that used to be the charity and the Red Cross continuing to donate to that charity even after people have been sent to their death. And that charity being called neutrality and humanitarianism. And what I took from that is that, we should never stop questioning, even when people, are well-intentioned and they are, talking about humanitarianism, that you still need to keep questioning what that actually means in real terms. Krakow is the set of an Oscar-winning film, Schindler's List, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's the story of Oskar Schindler, a German businessman who saved more than 1,000 Polish Jewish refugees during the Holocaust.
Oskar, before the war, was a Nazi spy. I don't know if you remember that scene in the movie. Have you seen the movie, by the way? Yeah. He is taking his golden Nazi badge and he is presenting it to his Jewish friend, and he is like, my Nazi badge is made of gold. If I would sell it, I would save 2 more lives. And then we all cry because the guy is so nice, he even wants to sell his golden Nazi badge. But to get a golden Nazi badge, you had to work for Hitler before he started winning the war. So Oskar was like that. He was a Nazi hero, Nazi spy. Oskar was not working alone. At the end of the war, when he's telling goodbye to his Jewish workers, he is saying, don't thank me, thank Mieczysław Pemper, Abraham Bankier, Itzhak Stern. You watch the movie, there is only Stern. And the Stern in the movie is not doing what really Stern did in real life. In real life, the Stern role was to connect Jews and Oskar, build the trust between them. And once this trust is established, then Abraham Bankier is stepping on the scene. He was running the factory. Oskar was still spying, not in Krakow a lot of times, and then Bankier was running the factory. Bankier, being a Jewish, to survive, he had to have an access to the black market, and then he used his black market access to buy materials for the factory, and then those materials were turned into pots, and then those pots were sold on the black market. 80% of the revenue of the factory like this. So you can say that if Oskar was a good guy, but he didn't have a Jewish guy running the factory for him, he would never ever got enough money to bribe all the people who were there to be bribed. On the other hand, if Jews had all the money in the world, but they didn't have a guy like Oskar, who was a Nazi hero, part of the system, and knew how to invest that money inside of the Nazi system, the Jews would not stay alive either. So you had to have those both groups together, Nazi guy, Jews, and then they could work something out. And Pemper, last Jewish guy, he was providing intelligence. In 1943, when Hitler lost Stalingrad, the final solution was put at high speed, high priority, and then if you were not working for German army, you would get killed. And Pemper tipped Oskar Jews so they would switch to military production, because he had that intel coming to him earlier than they did. Emily Schindler risked her life buying medication on the black market for the Jewish workers in the factory. And a Polish lover of Oskar, a lady named Klonoska, she was personally responsible for getting Jewish women out of Auschwitz. You know, the factory was relocated, Jewish women ended in Auschwitz. She went there, got them out, and I would say that you put those Jewish guys in the mix, you put the women, you realize how it was all about trust and collaboration. That's the true story of Oskar. main square of the ghetto. Here people were taken for deportations. Each of those deportations was more brutal than the previous one. But all of that was nothing compared to the liquidation of the ghetto, which was actually 13 and 14 of March. So I believe this anniversary. And that was like 1943. On that day, first, they told people with valid work permits to show up here. And they told them that if you show up and show your work permit, you're going to be allowed to take a suitcase with you. So people are showing up with suitcases, young, healthy, fit to work, and then they're going to be marched this way to Płaszcz concentration camp, which is like 3 tram stops away from here. And that was early in the morning, people with valid work permits. But you know, not everybody had valid work permits, or they had them but they didn't wish to show them because they didn't want to leave their families behind. And all those people later will be kicked out from their homes and they're gonna be made run here. And to make everybody run super fast, Nazis were killing those who were old, sick, disabled, couldn't keep up with the group. Those guys would be killed in their doorsteps, and then everybody else would run. And you know, you were at the back of the run, you could just hear shots and people falling behind you. You know, so you'd run faster, faster, faster. And then those who were running really fast were dumped here on the ground. And then those who were running slightly slower, they were told, "You're running super fast, sir, madam. We need people like you. Go there." And this small street over there. And once a group big enough assembled there, a guy with a machine gun would show up and kill them all. And similar stories in pretty much every smaller street around this area. And those who are fit to work, they will be dumped here. And then they are marched this direction, like the guys in the morning. And that's end of 13th of March. 14th of March, the SS is back, and now they're gonna search every house for people in hideouts. If they found grown-ups, killed on the spot. If they found children, children will be brought here. Not just the children from the ghetto. Those who volunteered with suitcases, with valid work permits, often did so because they hoped that they might be able to smuggle their children in those suitcases. Also, some of the people who were running super fast, they were running super fast with their children strapped to them under their clothes. But you would get to the gate of the camp, they would take your clothes, they would take your suitcase, your child will be discovered, and then if you want to accompany your child here, they would kill you on the gate of the camp, and the child alone would come here, and then it would be a series of mass executions, children only, divided in different age groups.
Encourage me to do something to against those the discriminations and those kind of terrible things. So in Myanmar, it is easy because I am working in the interfaith activities. So it is easy these days. I stand for the Muslim, or I stand with the minority, the religions or group. It is easy. Even not me, the other, even some Burmese, those who are our friends, they are easy to say and easy to do such kind of activities against the extremists. But the Rohingya, to say I stand for the Rohingya, I against those who discriminate or doing some bad work to the Rohingya. It is lack of people to say thoroughly on that.
Can I just ask you just one question? Why do you find it difficult to say openly, I stand for the Rohingya? Maybe that's one of the most difficult obstacles for all the Burmese. Yes. If you find yourself, you're so informed about the situation, travel around the world, but you find yourself, unable to cross that line.
In my, the families or my close friends or in my, I easy to, say like I stand for the Rohingya. But publicly, like my social media, my Facebook or maybe the public, on the public audience, government officially said that there is no Rohingya in Myanmar. And the other are saying like, the Rohingya are not the citizen, they are migrants. So that, also they are similar with the Nazi make the story on the Jewish are how terrible, and, they're carrying some diseases, something like the created information, bad information to the other people. So people become afraid of the Jewish in the area. Similar to that story in Myanmar, like the Rohingya are how bad, or the Rohingya invading to the country, and they are making a lot of big community by the no limited number of the but in the children, that kind of thing. That kind of information is loaded in our country. So for the like if I say like I stand with the Rohingya, then the people, not only the extremist group, but also some close friend of ours, like they are saying these kind of guy is like rebel or something like the how can I say, like enemies or.
So you fear that you will be made into an enemy of the public.
Yeah, like this. Yeah.
And then the second thing was the fact that ghettos were a transition. Our guide, and from the documentaries going through prior to coming here. So my people are, my father's village and my uncle's village don't exist anymore, who are now in these ghettos. They're in transition before they get to the final solution, or like Minga Angalan said, the unfinished business,
If the people if the refugee from the Bangladesh, if they are repatriated, the situation will be same like Krakow, as I'm seeing today. There will be the factory like the Schindler, and that there will be 42 can. They have already designed the can. They haven't built yet, but they will build it. So Rohingya will be in the 42 designated area in northern Rakhine State, and there will be some factory will be invested by the China or the local businessman. So the situation will be like similar like the Krakow.
Genocide region is not change the political, not only change the political system, but also change the society system and the social relations and also social system already transformed. So our behavior is already changed. Evidence of the collapse and the fears and the suspicions and the mass millions of so the only exit in the genocide. But another factor I would like to compare is the dehumanization process and also the result. So the resource, so the army Sudanese. So that is really required. So the parallel with the Nazi.
There were so many parallels what happened in Myanmar. I'm not just dwelling on what happened to me as a political prisoner, but what is happening to lots of people in Myanmar. Ghetto life. We have ghettos in Sittwe, and who's doing anything about it? Talking about genocide, last year I was invited to Dhaka. It was a genocide conference, but it's the 1971 genocide, which the Pakistani army committed against the Bangladeshis. Nobody's done anything about it. 1 million people at least died, in horrible ways. I think at least 200,000 women and girls were raped deliberately. But nobody's going to do that. I don't know what they're going to do about it. I feel very so much sympathy and empathy with them. But like I said, today, seeing this ghetto and what the Jewish people had to go through, it really has a huge impact. But are we going to just dwell on the past? We are faced with a similar situation right now in Myanmar. Now, it's not just the Rohingyas, and it's the Kachins, the Shans, Karen in the past. And now there's a lot of whitewashing going on, also helped by the civilian governments. So are we going to just tolerate it and see, oh, this will go away. There's a new dawn coming. For 30 years, we talked about it. Okay, when this party comes to power, and things will change so much. It hasn't changed that way at all. So then, there's a long way ahead, and it doesn't mean that we have to be disheartened. A lot of things remain to be done, and I'm so glad that we all get together, and the most important thing is that we have to plan our way ahead.
I thought that the perpetrators of genocide are quite formidable people. I think I'm not respecting, but I would say that their intelligence and their will was extremely strong. So sometimes it is said, according to the concept of Hannah Arendt, that banality of evil. But visiting the immense structure yesterday and listening to the very cruel, sad, but incredible stories today, I thought the stories and the scenes are not banal at all. So I think that for us who are now tackling the contemporary problems of Myanmar, I think we should be very much alert and always think of what the perpetrator side can do as a next step. So I think I was impressed, for example, today that so many ways to manipulate the mind of the people were invented by the Nazis. So I think we have to be aware that our opponents are quite intelligent. And I have to say that in the case of Myanmar, the government and the state side have more choices than Nazi Germany, in the sense that they have a lot of time. In the case of Auschwitz and Birkenau, I think the Axis were fighting against Germany, so I think their actions and choices were limited by time. But in the case of Myanmar, I think they go back to the first step. Sometimes, for example, because they have a choice of so-called NVC. So long as those Rohingyas can come back to Myanmar as non-citizens, then the state side may try to expel them again. And they return, and they may be expelled again. So in that sense, I think in the case of Germany, I think their choice is either to rise or to fall. But in the case of Myanmar, it can be a stable country. So in that sense, we have to be aware that our choices are not so good looking.
We always underestimate, evil. We always underestimate. We always like going with the hope, because activists always operate on the energy of hope. But those guys don't operate on the energy. They calculate. Yeah, that's why if you look at if Hitler was not a warmonger, he would have gotten away with killing all the Jews. Yeah, the rest of the Europe, because soaked in anti-Semitism across Europe, would have let him. The same way the Rohingyas were allowed to be, basically semi-liquidated, because the Burmese military is not a threat to anyone. Therefore, they are allowed to do it. And then the cooperation thing. Yeah? Every single genocide, there is also an economic beneficiaries. Every single one, land, property, from little street people like coming to take the door leaves of Rohingya houses. Yeah? In genocidal situations, the society, the public, the leaders that partake in or lead the dehumanization process, they also dehumanize themselves. And when we are destroying other people's physical community, we destroy our own society spiritually and internally. Yeah? What we are seeing is the collapse of Burmese society. Yeah? Not in the physical sense. Cities are being run, managed, traffic is there, hospitals there, academics are doing their job, businesses are there. But society is collapsing internally. People don't realize it.